So Jaylen Brown just got a $115 million contract extension over the next 4 years, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it. I mean, yes, he's a super talented player with a lot of potential, a lot of defensive potential, could use work on the offensive end, but he's only averaging 13 points and 4 rebounds. Is that really worth $115 million? I really think the Celtics were backed into a corner on this one because first off, he was going to be a restricted free agent coming this offseason, and because he turned down their 4-year $80 million offer. Had the Celtics let Brown test his value in free agency, it's possible he could have gotten a much bigger deal than the one he got with the Celtics. And if this did happen, the Celtics would be put in a weird position whether or not to match the extension or to let Brown walk in free agency. Looking at Brown as a player, like I said earlier, he's a very talented player and he has a lot of potential, especially on the defensive end where he's proven that he can guard 1 through 4. But on the offensive end, that's where his game is lacking a lot of consistency and why a lot of people are shaking their head that the Celtics gave him this massive contract. It even shows in the stats. In the 2017-18 season, Brown averaged 14.5 points, 4.9 rebounds, 1.6 assists, on efficient 46.5% from the field and 39.5% from the three-point line. But if you look at the 2018-19 season, he regressed. He shot 46.5% again, yes, but he shot only 34.5% from the three-point line, only averaged 4.2 rebounds, his assists lowered, and his points per game lowered. I think Brown was in the same boat as Tatum, given that they both had extremely good playoff runs in the 2017-18 season. I think they were expected to make the leap from borderline All-Star or maybe even All-Stars. But it's safe to say neither Brown or Tatum were able to live up to the hype. What do I think of the Jaylen Brown signing though? I mean, there are a lot of pros and cons. I'll start with the cons. Jaylen needs a lot of work on the offensive end, we all know that. We know his shooting needs work, but I think what's more concerning to me is his playmaking ability. Let's look at some great defensive players from the past years, and even current. You have Tony Allen, you have Rajon Rondo, you have Marcus Smart. These 3 players aren't known for their scoring at all, definitely not known for their shooting. Maybe Marcus Smart, who can hit the open 3 on occasion. But they all had things that set them apart aside from their shooting, scoring, and defense. Rondo had his insane playmaking ability, which still holds up to this day when he's not over dribbling. Tony Allen and Marcus Smart, they were both the heart and souls of their respective teams. That's what Jaylen needs to do in order to remove this label that he's just an athletic wing defender. Jaylen really needs to improve his playmaking and his ball handling. He has to get his numbers up to like 4 assists per game. He needs to improve his 3-point shooting back to the level it was at during his second year in the league where he shot 39.5% from the field, and I feel like he needs to be an all-around better scorer. We know he can drive to the rim and finish with powerful dunks, but what about the mid-range game? What about the shooting off the dribble? These are the questions that he's going to have to answer given that Kyrie is in Brooklyn and he's probably the third option behind Tatum and Kemba. You could argue fourth if you think Hayward is the third option. I personally think that Brown can do this. In fact, he's an extremely young player, extremely talented, and so full of potential. His floor is that he's a solid 3-and-D player, and his ceiling is that he's an all-star who can slash to the rim, guard 4 positions, and hit the open 3 when you need him to. Brown's contract is set to expire in 4 years, and he's going to be around 27, 28 years old at that time. And if you look at it in that perspective, and if he becomes an all-star, $28 million for a player of that caliber, that's a pretty good deal, especially given the salary cap is only going up. But with all that being said, the Celtics offered him a far from perfect contract, and personally, at this point in time, I think they majorly overpaid for him. Let's look at the contracts that were signed the day that Brown signed his massive extension. We have Buddy Hield, Domantas Sabonis, Taurean Prince, and DeJounte Murray. Buddy signed a 4-year $94 million contract extension with incentives, $20 million less than Brown did. And if you look at the numbers, Buddy averaged more points, more rebounds, more assists, and shot a better percentage from the 3-point line, and had a similar field goal percentage overall as Jaylen Brown. People will argue that Jaylen is the much better defender, which he is, but Buddy on offense just outclasses him in all ways. Playmaking, scoring, it's no contest. He averaged more points, rebounds, assists, shot a similar percentage from the field, and a much higher 3-point percentage than Jaylen Brown did. And most of all, his game fits the modern NBA. He's able to hit threes from extremely deep, he's able to make his own shot, and he's even able to take people off the dribble. He's a complete scorer, and it's easy to see why he got the extension he got. and it's easy to see why people argue that he should have had a bigger contract than Jaylen Brown, or Jaylen should have gotten less money than him. Let's look at Domantas Sabonis of the Indiana Pacers, who signed a 4-year, $77 million extension. Like Buddy, you could say that Brown is the better defender. However, Sabonis is the better offensive player in my opinion. Although he doesn't shoot the ball as well as Jaylen, given that he's a big man, you can see that he's a really effective low post scorer. He averaged more points, rebounds, assists, shot better from the field, and from the free throw line than Jaylen Brown. Let's look at Taurean Prince, the forward from the Brooklyn Nets, who I feel is the most similar player out of the 4 players that I mentioned to Jaylen Brown. You can argue that Brown is the better defender between the 2 players, but Prince isn't a slouch on defense either. He can effectively guard the 1 through 3, and occasionally he can switch on to the 4 and guard them as well. Maybe not to the extent of Brown, but he's still a very serviceable defender. But here's the catch. For only $29 million over the next 2 years, the Brooklyn Nets got themselves a very good perimeter defender, a solid post defender, and a guy who can stretch the floor, as Prince averaged 2.2 threes a game last season. And it wasn't like he was just chucking up these threes whenever he wanted. He shot a very efficient 39% as well. And finally, let's go to DeJounte Murray, who signed to the Spurs for a 4-year, $64 million extension. Brown is a better scorer than Murray for sure. Murray's extremely raw and still has to develop a jump shot himself. However, Murray is the better rebounder, playmaker, and defender. Murray has averaged more rebounds, assists, and has gotten an all-defensive second-team nod, which is something Brown hasn't done, even though both have been playing in the league for the same amount of years. And what's the common theme between the players who got extensions and Jaylen Brown? It's that these players are more equipped for the modern NBA, and that they can do things that Brown can't, all for much cheaper. But look, at the end of the day, Jaylen is still a very talented player, and he can develop into something that maybe some of these other players can't. The Celtics just took a big gamble on Brown. They're betting on him for the future, not right now. Right now it may look like a bad contract, but down the line, it may look like a steal. We never know. Only time will tell, but there's one thing that we can say right now, and it's that, Jaylen, you better thank your agent for getting you that bag. But with all that being said, thank you for watching this video and listening to my thoughts. If you like it, hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe, and hit the bell for post notifications. I'd appreciate that a lot. But until next time, thanks for watching, and enjoy your day.